Welcome to TheUpside Podcast, where we help you get unstuck in your life and your business by provoking meaningful change from the inside out. I'm your host, Teresa Flood, and today I have a guest, and I am so very excited to have Ken Wimberly here at Studio USA with me, and we are going to have an awesome conversation. And Ken is one of the most insane people I know, and you're going to find all about that in just a moment. But Ken, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, give us the resume. Who are you? What do you do in business and life?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'd say I'm a husband and father.
You are, yeah.
And married to my dream girl, Amber, and we got 3 kids. Daughter, Grace, who's just graduated college. Our son, Knox, is almost graduated college.
Like adult children.
Yeah.
2.
They're truly flying the nest right now.
They're
It's
awesome.
crazy. And then a 9-year-old.
Yes.
So he keeps us grounded and young.
Yes.
So,
does he keep you grounded? I feel like you're flying every which way. If you know this child, he is like a ball of energy, the biggest personality, such a fun kid.
just snapped 2 bones in his arm in January. Yeah, no,
There'll be many more stories from Ken Wimberly, no doubt.
Yeah, but that's first and foremost husband and father. But then in business, I served in the Navy way back in my college career. I went to TCU college, or ended up at TCU after a little bouncing around, and ended up in the Navy, did insurance and investments for a bit.
Which, thank you for your service. My dad's a Navy man.
Love
So I'm partial to Navy. Yeah, go Navy.
It was my honor. It really was my honor, and loved it. And did insurance and investments, a lot of finance stuff for a while, and then ended up in the real estate business. I spent 20 plus years, almost 25 years in commercial real estate.
Yeah.
And that's led me to a few other ventures, including most recently, which has really taken off and frankly taken up all my time, is the laundromat business. We launched Laundry Luv in 2019. Now we've got 3 stores. We just became an official franchisor. We've got our first queue of candidates in the queue, and we're looking to award somewhere between 4 and 10 franchises this year.
That's so awesome. Well, you kind of skipped over the fact that KW Net Real Estate Advisors has been top team in all of Keller Williams commercial. So you've built a huge real estate business, both on the commercial and Amber running the residential side.
We scaled up a big net lease team for a while. It's not near that big anymore, but
Yeah.
I scaled it up to the number 1 team in KW commercial, and really ran a big business for a little while. But as I got into some of these other businesses, I started allocating a lot more of my time in these other businesses and scaled that back, spun off some of that. But I still have my arms and will for, I think once you're in real estate, you're kind of in that for life.
It's hard to get out.
You're in it for life.
If you don't get out the first year, like the majority of people who get a license, and you're kind of stuck in it, it feels like, right? But it's an amazing opportunity.
Amber and I talk about it all the time. It's like, look, we get to help people.
Yeah.
And look, if we can serve and help people, that it used to have people, a mentor of mine who in the insurance business, who used to talk about how all of his clients were his friends. And I thought that was such malarkey. I was like, you're just saying that. But that's truly my life. All my clients become some of my greatest friends.
Yeah.
And so when you're able to do that and help your friends and serve them, it's a great thing. So I feel like I will be helping people with their real estate, needs for, until I croak.
Yeah. Well, it's that entrepreneurial spirit, right? And that's the platform. So Ken, I mentioned when I introduced you that you are a little bit insane. So you are the only person I know. Well, I don't know. There may be a few who go to bed earlier than me, but when we know each other more on a personal level, even though we are both Keller Williams, we know each other because our families get to hang out at a beautiful ranch on holidays together. And so kind of raising our kids together out there. And Ken is the only person that ever goes to bed before me at the ranch. And I love it because if you go to bed, I know I don't have to be the first one.
Gives you permission.
To not be the party pooper. And I'm like, well, yep. Started that, but that is because you are the only person I know, or one of the only people I know, that gets up substantially earlier than me, which I'm a 4:40 alarm girl, and you, Ken, are a 3:45.
3:45, the alarm gets up.
The alarm gets up.
Across, and I get after.
I want to talk a little bit because you have created a lot of success in your business, in your family life. But what strikes me about you is you're one of the most intentional and purposeful people that I know. You're very, very disciplined. Even when we're out at the ranch for Memorial Day weekend, you're going to bed early, you're getting up early, You get up and do your workouts in the morning. You stick to your eating schedule. Like, you're just a very disciplined person, and that stuff doesn't happen by accident. So I'm really curious about this morning routine. Tell us about it, and then tell us how that started.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with how it started to get there. And I was not at all a morning routine person. Way back in 2006 to 2009, I would wake up early. But early then was 5:30.
Which is still early.
And
I think to the average person.
But I would get up and start working.
Yeah.
That was it. I'd jump up and I would immediately start working. And that would be my thing. Of course, then 2008, 2009, I'd get up and just be stressed.
Yeah.
I would literally stare at
that was a very challenging real estate market.
Oh my goodness. And yeah, that was a really, really tough market. So I'd get up and be stressed. But in 2015, so January 2015, I went to
10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago, I went to my first GoBundance conference. And while I was there, I got paired up with in a kind of partner event with Hal Elrod, who wrote The Miracle Morning. And it was really, it was really odd. Well, no, I had just started reading that book on the plane to GoBundance. And I was like, are you the dude that wrote this book? And he was like, yeah. And so Hal's book in framework with the savers that he went through really helped me start to frame what a morning routine would look like. And so I started with that framework. If you haven't read The Miracle Morning, go get it. How I recommend it.
But yep.
And I started with that framework, and that's evolved over time. I've layered in different things. I've kind of put certain things underneath each other.
Sure.
But so what it looks like today is, all right, first of all, 3:45, first thing I do is make coffee. People want to go make a pot of coffee.
That's legit. Yep.
But now it looks like the first 20 to 30 minutes of the morning are breath work and meditation. And that will be done in either combined format, where I'll do like a deep hypertrophic breath work with meditation, or I'll maybe do a Wim Hof breath work, then followed by 10 to 15, 20 minute just personal meditation, prayer time. So that's the first 30 minutes of it, is just that, to ground myself.
Where does somebody learn about breath work? Like, I think that is not talked about very much. I had a trainer actually that I worked out with for a while, and he had me learning how to breathe deeply. And it was really interesting because it felt so slow. And yet he was explaining kind of the importance of just oxygen and how little oxygen that we actually get into our bodies. So it's an under talked about concept, I believe.
Yeah, today you can learn everything on YouTube. There's a lot of truth that I've taken a lot of breathwork classes that I've gone to it's really is next level. They're an hour to 2 hours long, deep breath work. It takes you truly onto a spiritual journey. I've not met anyone that's gone through this stuff that hasn't been really transformed by it. But you learn a lot. A friend of mine turned me on to a class. There's Soma breath work. If you go online to YouTube and look up Soma breathwork, I think the guy's name is Narek something or another.
Okay.
Is the guy's name, but phenomenal teacher. And I took, he's also got a class on Mind Valley that you can go through and take a Soma breathwork class, where I learned a lot about the physiological aspects of the breath work and what it's doing and how it's doing, and different techniques and in breath hold times and things like that. So there's lots of places you go to learn it. And then there's also Wim Hof. You can go really study Wim Hof and everything he's done with his methodology. And that's also a methodology I follow, is Wim Hof breath work.
Interesting.
So breath work, meditation.
Okay, what's next?
From there, it's journaling. I am I'm a big journaling person. And so I follow I'll tell you exactly my journaling format I follow, because I wanted to know, and I had a gentleman tell me at that first conference of GoBundance. Interestingly enough, that guy is now my EOS coach. Okay. So
wow.
The guy I met at my first GoBundance who told me his journaling format that I still use is now my EOS coach. But the format is, I'll write down I'm a big quotes guy. I literally have a list of probably 300 or 400 quotes that I've saved. Every time I hear a new one, I'm like, oh man, I'm going to add that. And I'll scroll through my quotes and I'll find something that resonates with me that day. And I'll put that quote is the quote of the day. And then I'll write 3 things I'm grateful for. Just start your day with gratitude, nothing better.
Yep.
Followed by 3 things I'm excited about. So what's coming up? What's on my radar that I'm excited about? That right there is just framing my day. It's putting me in a positive mental state, framing my day. And then I follow that with a narrative of just whatever I feel compelled to write down about what's going on in life. If I'm worried about something, if I'm excited about something, whatever, I'll write down a little bit of a narrative. And then that's followed by 2 really powerful, I'll say quotes, but they're multiple paragraphs is what this is. So this is my affirmations, if you will.
Okay.
One, you read the book Ninja Selling?
Yes.
So
many years ago.
At the end of Ninja Selling, there's the Ninja Prayer. And I loved that when I read it. And so I copied the Ninja Prayer and I put it in there, and I'll read that each day as an affirmation because it's really about connection to God and source and you bringing your talents into the world. And so I read the Ninja Prayer. And then Preston Smiles wrote a book, Abundance Activator, I think is what it was called. But he has an Abundance Activator almost poem, if you will, or something that I, again, really resonated deeply with, again, about spirit and connection. And so I put both of those things that I'll read aloud to myself each morning. So that's my journaling framework.
Okay, so how would you encourage somebody who maybe is not a writer? Because certainly you do not have to be a writer to journal, but there are certainly people who go just like, that feels hard, right? It feels hard to sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, or I think doing the quotes, I think is great because you're not just sitting with a blank piece of paper. And I think sometimes that is the challenge, right? Is like you're just starting from nothing. Is there any other advice or any other tips that you would give somebody on the journaling who's maybe never done that?
You can either you can have prompts for one. That's an easy thing is you can have prompts. What am I going to write about today? Like you can have very specific prompts. I use to do my journaling. I use a platform called Day One.
Okay.
Frankly, I think it's the best digital journal that's out there. And with Day One, they actually have a daily prompt that prompts up. You could actually just say, all right, I'm going to write whatever this daily prompt is that comes up. So that's one way.
Love that.
Another is, frankly, just with blank page, whatever comes to your mind. Just don't feel guilty about it. Whatever is on your mind, start writing.
Yeah.
And start writing. That actually forces you to get a lot of things out. And if you'll do that first, say, hey, I'm going to write for 20 minutes. Just whatever's on my mind, I'm going to start writing. I like to do that kind of in pen and paper style I like to do that one. And, but it's crazy what starts to come out after these 10, 15 minutes where you start writing.
How often do you go back and read your journals, or do you?
Not very often. It's the interesting thing. Not often. I'll tell you what's, well, we're going to side note. So I've been journaling to my children since they were born.
Yes.
I write stories about their lives each month, and I do go back and read those. And that is the most potent, wonderful thing I can do in my life is to go and reread those journals. Again, Day One offers like a shared function. So I'm literally copying or moving my journals from a private to a shared version right now.
Okay.
So I can share with my children.
Yeah.
And that is having me kind of go back and reread each one. It is a beautiful experience. So I do like to reread the ones I've written about my children. But as far as my daily journaling, every once in a while I'll go back and I was like, hey, pick a day. Boom. What was I writing about that day? And so
when I was pregnant with the girls, I actually created email accounts for them, and I emailed them. Do you want to know what's really sad? Can't find the email account. Yes, Ken, that is true. I know. Yes. That's a whole other story for a whole nother. Welcome to the life of Teresa. Okay, so
but we're not done.
Work in meditation and prayer, gratitude and journaling. Then what comes next?
Reading.
Then we're reading. What are you reading? Well, you've mentioned a lot of great books, but how do you choose what you're going to read?
I read kind of what I have a queue of books. Okay. I'll hear people recommend different things, and I'll queue these books. So I have a little list on, I've heard this or heard that, so what's recommended, and I'll figure out what's kind of up next in the queue. Right now, I'm reading one called Stories That Stick by Kendra Hall. Actually, I heard it from Linda McKissick, who was talking about it.
I heard her at a Keller Williams convention speak. She's fantastic.
So reading her book, because I love the power of story. Story is one of the greatest ways to get meaning across.
Sure.
And so I'm reading Stories That Stick. And some books I read I listen to on Audible. I'm actually listening to that one on Audible, and I'm taking notes as I listen to it. So taking my keynotes. So I'll read a book in the morning, 10 to 30 minutes. Is what I spend on my reading. So somewhere between 10 and 30 minutes.
All right.
And then after my reading.
And then what time is it at this point? So lead us up. So that's approximately what?
By the time I get through the reading, we're about a full hour into my morning routine. So
okay, so my alarm's going off.
So your alarm's going off, and I'm almost finished with my morning routine.
Got it.
And so,
thank you.
But from there, it's the last really couple things on there is exercise, which is a really important component.
Yep.
But that's the last thing I do. Before exercise, I actually map out my day.
Okay.
And that's sometimes dangerous because sometimes when I map out my day, I'll go down rabbit trails and it will push my exercise.
Yeah.
And so it's a little dangerous, but I do like to map out my day. I end up mapping out the top 3 things I need to get done for the day. And if nothing else got done, if I can get these top 3 things done, so I'll map out those 3 things. I'll make sure that they're on my calendar so that what I say I want to do matches what's actually on my calendar. Yep. And then from there, I'll exercise. And exercise today, I've got a little home gym. It's a workout bench with a bunch of different, dumbbell weights that I'll use. Yep. So I'll do that to build. I've learned as I age, strength training is really, really important. In fact, they say much more important than cardio.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to layer in a lot more strength training these days. So I'll do that. But guess what? In Texas, the last few days, it's been from the 40s to the 20s. That's not fun.
Yes.
So some days, quite often, it will be just body weight, push-ups, sit-ups, squats. So like yesterday, I did, 200 push-ups, 200 squats. So just knock that out. Body weight exercises, easy to get done, and it's warm. Today, I work out with a group called F3, amazing group, Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith, great group of men. And I led a 5-mile ruck in 25-degree weather with a 17-mile north wind this morning. So it was a little chill. It's a little chill, but it's committed. You talk about being disciplined and committed. When you commit to something, you're going to show up and commit to it. Yeah.
So, okay. Have you always been a morning person? And because there's going to be people listening that are they're not morning people and they struggle in the mornings. They've always struggled. And so, the message I don't think is that everybody needs to get up at 3:45.
No.
The message is to master your morning and to make it purposeful and intentional. But how does one become a morning person?
I think the message, this is kind of what I got from Hal's book initially. You don't need to wake up but just wake up 30 minutes earlier than you would normally wake up and give that 30 minutes to yourself.
Yeah.
Just commit to giving that to yourself. Or if you can do an hour earlier, then you've got a full hour to yourself when there's no kids, no spouse, no messages, no one demanding of your time. It's just for you. But that time you pour into yourself, it truly changes the entire landscape.
Yeah, I agree. So I've always been more naturally a morning person. So even in high school and college, I would have preferred to get up early and study as opposed to pulling all nighter.
Me too.
I just get dumber as the day goes on. If you know me well, like nothing brilliant is happening at night at all for me.
Yep.
So I'm naturally wired a little bit that way, which I consider a blessing. But I wasn't somebody who I would get up maybe 6:30. I wasn't somebody who was getting up really early. And after my twins were born, they would get up very early. Have always gotten up very well until they're now teenagers.
Yeah.
That has shifted. But I realized that if I was going to get anything purposeful done, that I had to get up early. And so when they were probably 1 or 2 years old, after they were actually sleeping through the night and I had a little bit more control over what that morning routine looked like, that's when I started implementing that. And I will say that's probably been the number one catalyst that's helped me intentionally grow. Because those hours, that 1 hour, that 30 minutes, or even that 15 minutes, you add it up over time and you add it up over years. So it's probably been about 10 years for me too that I've had a morning routine that I would say I'm proud of.
Yeah.
And I look just at my own mindset, personal growth, and opportunity, and that is the number one game changer.
Well, look at how your world has grown in the last 10 years, how my world has grown in the last 10 years. There's no doubt in my mind that my personal time that I've poured into myself to improve it and show up as the best version of me. It's not about comparing myself to anyone else. It's just about showing up as the best version of Ken that I can be.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's run your own race. It's not about a comparison on morning routines or anything like that. Okay, so Ken, you practice doing hard things.
On purpose.
On purpose. Yeah. You have done 10 Tough Mudder races, which I don't know the details of that, but it sounds hard.
They're awesome.
You have done 5 24-hour walks.
6th one is coming up in a month or so. Yeah.
That also sounds hard. You've done, and I'm not even sure how to say this, a 29029 or
29029. Yeah.
29029. Is that how you say it? So that's a Mount Everest.
Yeah. It's a 29029. They call it Everesting.
Okay.
And that's a pretty fascinating event. the name comes from Mount Everest is 29,029 feet above sea level, or that's the height of Mount Everest. And so the group that runs this will go rent a mountain for a weekend.
Or like a website, like an Airbnb for mountains.
That's how you do that. Someone figured this out, right? They go rent a mountain.
Okay.
And then they figure out the elevation from the base to the top of the mountain.
Okay.
And how many times do you have to hike up the path we're going to go up to get to 29,029 feet?
Okay.
And so you climb the equivalent of Mount Everest without the crevasses and the chance of death.
I can appreciate that.
So you still do something really, really hard.
Right.
So you have 36 hours to complete it. I think they started at 8 a.m. I think they started at 6 a.m. On a Friday morning. It's at 6 p.m. on a Saturday evening is how it works.
Okay.
And, depending on conditions, they'll have between 50 and 70% of the people that will complete the whole thing. But here's what's cool about that event is they mapped out the 7 summits, right? The peaks of the 7 summits. And so it might be, we'll give you an example. You might have to climb the mountain 17 times to get to Everest.
Sure.
But after 6 ascents, you've reached what I don't know the 7 summits.
Delirium?
You've definitely reached delirium. But I don't know the name of the lowest of the 7 summits, but you've reached that first one. So for a lot of people, just reaching that is their big goal.
Sure.
This allows you
way more than most people.
Sure, climbing a mountain.
I'm thrilled that might be 10 minutes on the stair step to warm up at the gym. I mean,
get it. So this is one of those things that allows you to push your boundaries. And so I did it in Stratton, Vermont, and I think it was 13 times up Stratton. I can't remember the details, but I do remember that 4 hours in, first of all, it was 49 degrees pretty much the entire time. 4 hours in, it started raining, and it didn't stop raining until after the event had finished. And so I slugged through that thing for 30 hours straight till I finally
it's amazing.
Completed it. It was
so why do you purposely
really
put yourself through these types of rigorous and really physical activities? And yet the real key, I think, is the mental toughness that it takes to be able to continue on and to build resilience. But tell me just about why you choose to do that intentionally and purposely and how that's affected other areas of your life.
I think where the Tough Mudders I started doing just for fun and camaraderie. And so it wasn't really to like push myself and do something crazy hard. The first really, really hard thing I did was the 24-hour walk. And we did that in May 2020. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And it was a true test of mental grit because 8 hours in, there was already pain setting in. By 12 hours, it was incredibly painful. 16 hours in, it was fire on my feet, and we still had 8 hours to go.
What kind of terrain are you walking on?
Mostly flat terrain here. This is in Texas.
This is in Texas.
So we're doing mostly flat terrain.
Still.
But still, when I first heard about it, my friend had told me it sounded like easy. Oh, you're just going to go walk for 24 hours?
Yeah.
It sounds easy. It, hands down, one of the most excruciating, painful things. But in getting through it, what I realized, my brain was playing tricks on me the whole time. You should quit. You should stop. You're going to injure yourself. This is happening. There was no reason you should have committed to this. I mean, it's telling me all these stories. And I had to push through all the stories with my brain. What I realized, how many times does that happen in life? Like every day when I'm facing something hard, I'm telling myself stories of why I can't or shouldn't or not good enough or any of these other things. And so as I do these more and more, it helps me become so much more confident as a person in all aspects of my life. And that includes from parenting, my relationship with my wife, business, all these aspects. I realize, this hard thing that's in front of me, I'm going to get through it. It's going to be okay.
So at what point in your first 24-hour walk did you know you were going to make it? You remember?
Across the finish line?
I mean,
I'll say probably about 2 o'clock in the morning. It was just 2 of us that first year. We'll probably have 30 that will do it this year.
Okay.
In fact, I invite anyone listening, if you would like to join us, April 4th, we're going to be doing it in Fort Worth. So I'll give Teresa a link to put the show notes somewhere.
Put it in the show notes.
I don't know. But 2 o'clock in the morning or so, it's just really, really difficult. And Elliot, my buddy and I, they're doing it. We separate a little bit, and I can hear him talking to himself. He's just saying mantras. And I started doing the same thing. I'm like, you know what? You asked for this. I really did, because I thought it was going to be easy and I wanted it to be hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, you asked for this to be hard. I was like, you have walked through the door, buddy.
Yeah.
And it's everything you asked for and more. And I'm literally talking to myself for a couple of hours going through it. We both were hallucinating. I was seeing things going, and it was a little wonky. But at that point, I knew I'm going to get through. I was literally telling myself, 1 foot in front of the other. Yep. 1 foot in front of the other. Just keep stepping. And just get
so much of life that's that way, right? When you go through a hard thing in your family or your business, there's times that you don't know if you're going to make it to the end, right? And so it's that mental toughness. I did and I even hesitate to tell the story compared to some of what you have shared that you have done, but I did a half marathon in 2020, or not 2020, 2010. And so it was before my girls were even born. And at the time I was in great shape, but I wasn't a runner. So even that 13.1 miles to me that felt an impossible feat.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely one of the best things I've ever done, because I proved to myself I could do hard things. And it has been I've gone back to that point many times in my life where I've said, I never thought I was a runner. So I didn't see myself as a person who did X. I trained for it. I pushed myself. I trained in 3 months and did it. But it was one of the most, spiritual and personal growth experience. I have a lot of stories kind of that happened in that whole training process as well. But I rewired my brain to teach myself, you can do things you didn't think were possible. You can do things that you don't think are you. And so I would encourage anybody listening to take whatever that next step is to do something that feels impossible.
Well, here's the other thing I get when you say, okay, you went and did that.
Yeah.
You honored the word and the commitment you made to yourself. Yeah. You said, I'm going to go do this. It's right. Finish it. So many people will say, oh, I'm going to go do this. And they don't. They let those negative voices in their head, or the comfort. They let comfort take them out of discomfort.
Yeah.
And then we both are, what is it? Do the easy thing and life gets hard. Do the hard thing and life gets easy.
Yes.
And there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Stephen Covey says that, and this is absolutely one of my favorite concepts. I teach this all the time. He talks about personal integrity, and that being the number one way to build confidence. Making and keeping the promises we make to ourselves is absolutely the number one way to build confidence, because deep down, when we have that personal integrity and we do what we tell ourselves we're going to do, and a lot of times nobody even knows it, because we make commitments to get up at a certain time. We can make commitments to do X, Y, and Z in our business. We make commitments that we're going to do this with exercise or nutrition, and then we don't even tell anyone about it. And so we're not held accountable, but internally we know. Internally we're letting ourselves down every time we make that choice. And that's where confidence so many times.
I think more people need to talk about that, because it's so true. That is where confidence comes from, is when you are holding yourself, personal integrity.
It's not outward success. That is why there are people who are outwardly successful that are some of the most insecure people, because deep down they know the internal, right? And nobody's ever perfect with that by any means, but it's the intentional, purposeful act of saying, I'm going to make promises and keep them.
And sometimes that can go over a really long arc of time. It can go over a really long arc. But
and that's the journey.
It's the journey.
That's not we talked about
the journey earlier. So
Okay. So you had mentioned at the very beginning of this that kind of your morning routine came from a GoBundance event.
Yep.
I know that you are very purposeful in who you surround yourself with, of like-minded men. That's kind of a tribe around you. Tell us about the importance of that, and what a difference that makes in your life.
It's really brought me to where I am, the people we surround ourselves with. And like, I'm still friends with a lot of my friends from college and Navy and places where I'm still friends with those people, but it's not who I spend my time with generally. And the people I spend my time with are people that are of like mind, that are helping that are wanting to get to places where I want to get as well, that are wanting to improve themselves, that are wanting to pour into themselves, that are wanting to help others. So that's, unfortunately, it's just a small percentage, at least in my observation of the world,
Yeah.
where people like that. And so I found that first tribe of people in GoBundance, and that was 2015. Still an active member. I'm on their tribal council now, and I absolutely love that group of men. And then the second I found through GoBundance was Front Row Dads. And yeah, I love Front Row Dad's mantra, if you will. It's family men with businesses, not businessmen with families.
I love
That's the frame.
Yeah.
And so that frame resonates, then Front Row Dads resonates, and it really did with me, because that is, how did I introduce myself? First as husband and father.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. So, but those two tribes are my principal tribes of people. And then the third, as I mentioned, I was working out this morning with my F3 tribe, and that's, man, I'm, again, a military guy. That was started by former military guys. Why it resonates. It's very regimented. It starts at 5:30, ends at 6:15. Very disciplined, regimented, and member-led, free group, and it has three components. It's fitness, which brings everyone in.
Yep.
Which starts fellowship, and surrounded by faith.
Well, and too, when you do hard things with other people, like you think about in your life, and if you go through a season that's really challenging, the people that walk with you in those seasons, those are the people that are typically friends for life. Those are the people that become family.
Yeah.
And so even creating opportunities to do challenging things with people, I mean, what a great way to bond.
Nothing true in what you just said.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about Laundry Luv a little bit, just from the perspective of this amazing business that you've created that has been really formulated on passion and purpose over profits. And I know that there are entrepreneurs and business people listening that have things that they're passionate about and ways that they want to make an impact and a difference, and they have a platform of a business. And sometimes it may feel hard to connect those together and figure out how to really make those two things congruent. And you've really done that with Laundry Luv. Share a little bit about that and what that looks like.
Yeah. I'll say, first, we got into Laundry Luv as a solution to a real estate problem. We had vacancy in a shopping center, and I was looking for a tenant, is what I was looking for.
Okay.
I'm in commercial real estate. I was looking for a tenant. And met some laundromat folks and pitched the center to them. And they came back to me and said, Ken, this is like the perfect center for a laundromat. And so tell me why. I'm curious. Tell me why. And so they kind of walked me through the demographics, psychographics, the apartments, the renters, a lot of this stuff on how they evaluate it. And I thought they were an operator. So I was like, okay, great. Here's a lease, sign hard, and get it back to me. And they were not an operator, but they were within the laundromat industry. And so we looked for an operator, but this was in Abilene, Texas, and we just couldn't find one. And so after a few months, I went to my partner and said, what if we explored this industry? That led to a year-long journey of us exploring the industry that then got me into business with Schuyler Williamson, who's now our CEO, just an amazing person. So Jason Schuyler and myself co-founded this business. And when we started, we said, okay, if we're going to start something, if we're going to get into a new business, we're going to do something that really fuels us to do it, not just to go make profits. And so what we learned during that year of investing in the industry is that laundromats are successful in areas where there's low household income. So 40,000 or less household income is generally where you're going to see a successful walk-in laundromat. Mm-hmm. What we learned is in those neighborhoods, 1 in 300 families has books for their kids.
Wow.
That's what I said. I bet I have 300 books for my kids in my house.
Wow.
1 in 300 families. And so we partnered with, so the Laundromat Foundation has a literacy component. So we partnered with them to bring in childhood literacy component to every one of our laundromats. But then we said, look, let's make a place where kids can thrive in laundromats. So we built a children's play area, because the other thing we observed in studying the industry, you go in, there's oftentimes, is more often than not, moms than dads would be in with their children. Doing the laundry. So you'd have moms with their kids, and their kids would be doing what kids do, running around, bored, playing, pushing laundry carts, climbing in machines, and
nightmare.
Just being kids.
For mom.
We're like, let's give a place where the kids can have a safe place to play where they're comfortable. Mom can be comfortable doing the laundry, doing her thing. And then let's add literacy into it. So we run actually events in our stores. We bring authors in to read to kids, or we'll partner with local universities where the students or high school students will come in, and read to kids. But then what we do is we give away a book to every child that comes to the store that wants one. Well, we offer a book away to every child that wants one and trying to make a small dent in that literacy component. In fact, we even now, we run our business IDOS tracking metrics, and we have a line item. We track how many books we gave away each week with each one of our stores.
I think that's so awesome.
Yeah, so that's the way we're trying to make an impact.
That is awesome. Okay, so as we wrap, I would just like to ask you just an open-ended question. What encouragement or advice would you give somebody listening that's just whatever level they're at, wherever they're at, they're looking to kind of level up? What do you think that advice would be?
Look, my journey has been on, I'll call it habit stacking. Mm-hmm. And well, if you haven't read the book, Atomic Habits, that would be one bit of advice. Pick up that book and read it and start habit stacking. And what I mean by that is start with just one thing, one habit one thing you want to improve in your life. We talked about a lot. It's like, oh, how am I going to do all that? It's easy to say I'm going to do nothing because everything seems overwhelming.
Right.
Well, I didn't start with everything. I started with a thing. And really, for me, the thing was exercise is what I started with. But start with whatever your thing is and commit to it. To me, to make a new habit in my life, it takes about 90 days. I know, you hear 21, you hear Gary Keller's 66 or whatever the day is. Yep. For me, it's about 90 days to implement something in my life. So I will commit for 90 days to really do something, and then it starts to become part of the fabric of who I am. And then after that, I can maybe look to the next thing and say, okay, this feels good. Now, what's the next thing I want to try to add into my life? And then I'll add a little bit. And then the first thing is just it's who I am. I don't have to work at it anymore.
Right.
And then it's the next thing that I'm kind of working on.
Well, and I think that wraps us up perfectly because one of the things that I believe in so strongly is that the journey is always about who we're becoming. It's really not about the end destination. It is not about the goal. The goal is just the opportunity of who we want to become in the journey. And so, we don't start as that person. And so when we make the choices and we stack them and they become habits, that is how we become then the disciplined person, the strategic person, the intentional person. And then we look back and we go, oh my goodness, look at all of this result that's happened, but it's happened because of who I've got to become along the way.
You talk about looking back. Okay, that just makes me think. I actually started to force me to look back. I started a monthly personal newsletter that I read. There's like 40 people on the list.
Okay,
okay, I will. There's like 40 people. It is a very small list that I have. It's opt-in only on this, but I took this idea from Jay Papasan. Mm-hmm. He mentioned it at one of Skylar's events, and I was like, that is a brilliant idea. But what this does at the end of each month, I look back over the month and I have it broken into like 5 sections from family, business, and a couple other sections, right? What I'm reading, what I'm learning, this kind of stuff. And as I go back and I slow down and I'm like, wow, look at the progress I made this month in my family. Look at what I made in this business. And I'll go back and I will read some of these old little episodes of that I sent out. And I'm like, my goodness, there's been amazing progress. Because so often we forget to celebrate the little victories that we achieved in our lives, and it's the gap in the gain concept. Yeah. So it's the whole gap in the game. So if you're really looking at the gains we made, that has many, many positive effects and endorphins for your body, and it has us. We quit living for lack.
Yes,
and we start just living for gratitude, from where we become.
Well, Ken, thank you. Speaking of gratitude, this is a great conversation. I learned a lot. I think we uncovered a lot of great topics. We could have probably talked a lot longer. But thank you for investing in us today. And everybody listening, thank you for joining us at the TheUpside Podcast. And we believe that when you invest in your life, in your business every single day, it will yield you great returns. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Teresa. Appreciate it.